Frederick's newsletter earns less than $1,000 a month. By the end of this coaching call, we're going to have mapped out a plan for him to earn tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars from his newsletter every month. And the crazy part? It should only take him a few weeks to implement and see results. Everything that Frederick struggled with is the same stuff I see so many newsletter operators getting wrong, probably including yourself. So grab a notebook as we fix his monetization strategy step by step on our call. And then you can copy paste what you learned to build your own 6- or 7-figure newsletter today.
So my newsletter is called Startup Seed. The basic idea is that all our subscribers, or the main value proposition is that you get 2 startup or business ideas each week in your inbox every Friday. And it's a German newsletter. I write it in German, and kind of the USP that I would say that we have is that all the business ideas that I research are validated somewhere else. So I'm not just asking ChatGPT or just thinking randomly of ideas. So I actually try to find concrete startups. So at the end of each idea, I link to a specific concept or company that has funding, users, or revenue, ideally.
So in the first 20 minutes of the coaching call, I'm asking Frederick a bunch of questions about his newsletter, trying to figure out his audience, his monetization, and what has happened in general so far. Let's speed through that. Here's the important stuff that you actually need to know about the Startup Seed newsletter so that you can follow along and get value out of the rest of the call. Frederick started the Startup Seed newsletter about a year ago, and he has about 8,000 subscribers so far. Most of them came from Facebook ads. Frederick's audience loves his newsletter. He gets a 60 to 70% open rate on pretty much every edition, which is super high engagement and shows me there's the potential for him to build a really strong revenue channel on top of the newsletter. But so far, he's tried 4 different ways to monetize his newsletter, and none of them have really worked out yet. Firstly, he tried launching a cohort-based course, but he couldn't sell enough of the slots, so he had to cancel the whole thing. Right now, Frederick actually has a full archive of all of the ideas that he has shared in his newsletter, and he makes them available for a one-time purchase of $99. But only about 30 of Frederick's subscribers, all 8,000 of them, have bought this so far. That's a conversion rate of about 0.3%, which is way lower than what you'd be hoping for. 5 to 10% for a $100 product is way more the ballpark of what you should be expecting. Now, one thing that is sort of working in monetization for Frederick is paid recommendations, where you get paid to recommend other newsletters to your audience right after they subscribe to your newsletter. And right now, Frederick's making about 30 to 40 cents from paid recommendations per new subscriber. It's not a huge amount, but it does add up. Finally, Frederick's running ads in his newsletter. He has one sponsor, a marketplace for acquiring small companies, which is a great fit for his audience and which has sponsored 5 of his newsletters so far. And they're paying about $300 per send. Frederick's goal for the newsletter is to make enough revenue to justify the time that he puts into it. He has the work of writing, researching, and growing it alongside his full-time day job and another startup that he runs. Ideally, he'd even like to be able to afford to bring someone on to take on some of that work for him. Now that we know the basics of the Startup Seed newsletter and audience, we can jump into the meat of the coaching call with a super important starting question that newsletter operators never ask themselves, but should.
The revenue streams you have so far are pretty newsletter centric, right? You're building newsletter revenue rather than a business necessarily on top of the newsletter. How interested are you in committing maybe more time or more resources into layering on potentially services or products or something else on top of this for that audience that you're serving?
I'm very interested in that. I've kind of also warmed up a bit to the idea to do something that's more of a service-based thing in some way, starting out in smaller batches, and also in that way probably also learning a lot more about my readers.
When I like to approach thinking about revenue, let's just start from the beginning and sort of forget what you have at the moment. We might bring that back in, but let's think about maybe what the right thing would be. And really, when it comes to newsletter revenue, I'm focusing on 2 different things. So number one is subscriber lifetime value, right? How can we make as much money as possible from the newsletter in the long term? But then number 2 is payback period. How can we make enough money as soon as possible to cover the costs of acquisition so that we're not having to spend a lot to get subscribers through the door? Because if we can get to a payback period that is 0 or as close to 0 as possible, that will make everything else a lot easier, because we can obviously scale up the number of subscribers that you have very, very quickly without having to add in a lot of revenue, right? So let's start with the lifetime value aspect, right? We're trying to figure out, how do we just turn this newsletter into something that makes as much money as possible? Where I would tend to start there is about thinking about your audience and about thinking about the scale of willingness to pay that your audience has. So if you imagine 100, actually imagine 1,000 subscribers, okay? All of them can be monetized indirectly, right? Even the ones who are willing to pay absolutely nothing, which is almost all of them, you can monetize them through sponsorships, paid recommendations, other stuff where your affiliate links, where you're monetizing them indirectly, right? So we have that first of 100% of the audience can be monetized indirectly.
Yeah.
They're not going to pay anything. They have a willingness to pay of most of them at 0. Then if you go up a level and you go, okay, well, I have probably about, it's a rule of thumb, but about 10% of my audience are going to be willing to pay something. Now, that something is relative to the whatever you're writing about and the purchasing power of that audience, right? So in your case, it might be $50, $100, $150, something like that is maybe what about 10% of your audience will pay. In other cases, it might be much less. In some cases, it might be much more, but it'll be in that low sort of tens to low hundreds of dollars range. And then if you go up again, probably 10 out of your 1,000 subscribers are probably willing to pay significantly more, right? There'll be something where they would be willing to pay a couple of thousand of dollars. And at the top, you have people who are probably willing to pay tens, in your case, probably not hundreds of thousands, but realistically tens of thousands, right? If you think that one in 1,000 subscriber who maybe they want to sponsor your newsletter for a year or 2 years, maybe they want to hire, maybe they're very rich or they're very busy, and they would happily hire you to go and figure out marketing or sales or to test out some idea for them and pay you $10,000 to do that, right? Um, Not saying that those are necessarily ideas that you want to do, but just thinking about, there is going to be buckets in each of these things, right? And most of the time, you don't have to start with all of these things, but most of the time, a really good optimized revenue strategy for lifetime value is going to have something covering each of these buckets. You're going to be able to pull from each of these buckets of willingness to pay, more or less.
Yeah, I think that's a great way kind of making up these buckets and seeing, okay, I have something that covers this, I have something that doesn't cover this. And my thought probably is also that I'm too much going on the low end, and that the real profitability will more come on the higher scale buckets, as you mentioned.
I think there's a good chance of that. I did some research on other newsletters when we came in here. And there are some that monetize with subscriptions and with access to the old ideas and ads and things like that. And there are some that seem to be doing pretty okay. But there are others, like, for example, Greg Eisenberg's Startup Ideas newsletter, his Startup Ideas site. The way he makes most of his money is not even from the people who are looking for the ideas. It's from people who are inspired by his content and then go to his design agency and pay millions of dollars for him to design their websites at their real jobs. That's
Okay.
where he makes not nearly all of his money, but it's where he makes most of his money is from that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
his newsletter is actually just like an interest funnel, because it's something those people are also interested in.
Yeah.
And he's not really trying to monetize 99.99% of people, because 1 out of 10,000 happen to work at Apple or somewhere like that, where they're going to pay him, millions of dollars for a contract.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, let's start at the easiest place and work our way up, because I think the one with the least unknowns is probably the 100% of the audience where you're monetizing them indirectly, where they're not paying for anything.
Yeah.
You're already running sponsorships, right? And you're
Yeah.
already running paid recommendations.
Exactly. Yeah. So as I said, it has been some partners in the door now. I kind of also set up a bit of the funnel where people can fill out a form.
Are they coming back and recurring like long-term partners, or are they just in like one-off?
So for one partner, it's a platform for where you can buy small startups,
Mhm.
that you also, I think, mentioned in one of your recent newsletters, and the ad has been crushing it. It had almost 6% CTR, lots of unique visitors or clicks, and I'm right now in the process. We have one more ad going out next week. Actually, no, it was today, and yeah, we're in talks of kind of working together, maybe on a more long term basis. And the other one, I'll have to see if that's in their interest. But yeah, I mean, it was very promising results, at least for now. So I'm hopeful that I can get good renewals.
What else have you done in terms of trying to find other sponsors or more sponsors?
So my strategy kind of was to, every time I see something that could, where I'm thinking, okay, this could be worth going for my audience, I reach out to the founder or whoever is in charge of that, and just read out and say, hey, that's my newsletter. I'm doing this. And I haven't done a lot, maybe like 10 people so far. I've also really done cold outreach on LinkedIn with 2 people who have um, advertised in a German newsletter, and that has not worked at all so far. But I know that 2 people is not probably the quantity that it would get. But I thought if they're already advertising in a newsletter, especially in Germany, then maybe that could be something interesting for them. So yeah, and then the Beehive AdWord network, but that's, as I said, not the ideal case.
Okay. So in your situation, where I think we have a lot of other ways that we're going to come on to monetize this that are direct, I, at your audience size, wouldn't spend a huge amount of time now trying to optimize for the sponsorships, because the bigger you grow, the easier it's going to be.
Hmm.
So in your situation, probably what I would be doing is two things. Firstly, I would be going to a site like Who Sponsors Stuff, and I would also be reading, which presumably you're already doing, all of your sort of competitor newsletters, right? Anyone who's talking about startup ideas. And for this audience, any of those newsletters, I would be going back through their back editions. I would be signing up for them. And I would put together a list pretty quickly of everyone who is sponsoring newsletters like yours, basically, or related to yours.
Hmm. Yeah.
I in recent history. I would reach out to them. I would try and get them interested. And then together with the existing sponsors that you have, I would sort of go to them and say, "Hey, look, I'm a little bit small right now to be doing this on a long term, like on a a basis where I keep doing more and more and more sponsorship sales. I don't want to do that right now. I'm really focused on scaling this newsletter, and
Hmm.
I have a really big goal to hit 50 or 100,000 subscribers in the next 12 or 18 months. Right? This is
Yeah.
the whatever you think is ambitious but realistic. What
Yeah.
you're trying to hit." And you say, "Look, I know I'm small now. I'm going to try and hit this. I don't want to have to keep telling it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll give you some space in a welcome email. I'll give you the one placement that I'm selling for the rest of the year. And I'll include you on the site as an option of like what I recommend as well. And I'll throw in 3 social posts if you do those or something, whatever you commit to there. I'll do those. And in return, I'd like a sponsorship to lock in the whole 12 months. You don't have to pay up front necessarily. It can be paid monthly, but I want the lock in of this. Now, if I grow much faster, that's on me. I'm going to miss out on all that revenue. That's okay. I'm willing to give up that revenue to not have to deal with the hassle of this, and because you're believing in me in the early stage. A
Okay.
lot of the time, people say yes to that. If you look at like Harry Dry's marketing examples newsletter, he had no problem closing one of those deals. Starter Story did a similar thing with Klaviyo in the very early days. A lot of these newsletters will, a lot of these brands, sorry, that are sponsoring you will have come across this before, and many of them will be interested in that opportunity. They might not all go for it, but you only need one to say yes. Say yes, I'll give you. I believe in you. I like what you're trying to do. I'll give you the 12-month deal or the rest of the year deal or something like that.
I love that idea. I've never thought about it, and now that you say it, it makes a ton of sense, because especially, and probably there's a lot of newsletter operators out there who have maybe a similar smaller size newsletter. Um, it makes total sense because you lock it in, and of course you could maybe get a few more euros or dollars out of sponsorships if you all the time find new ones. But having limited resources, this could help cover just even the baseline costs, and even probably be a bit profitable, and then go from there. Yeah, thanks. That's a great suggestion.
And the other nice thing about it is it takes away your focus from trying to close sponsorship sales, which
Yeah.
even like probably you're underselling at the moment for those 300 edition because it's such a good fit. But even if you get them up to 600 an edition, and even if you double your audience size, you're talking about the potential to make maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month, which I mean, it's really nice, but that's with 100% fill rate and you spending a whole load of time on this. And there are probably much, much, much better,
Yeah.
like more effective ways to spend that time on revenue. So let's park that one there and move on to the like the next level of sort of people who are maybe about 10% ish of your audience, 3 to 15% who might be willing to pay something at least, right?
Yeah. Perfect.
So with that audience at the moment, you've tried subscriptions and you're currently doing a one-off sale of $99 for access to everything.
Yeah, and I will say that I've seen higher conversions when I used to have two ideas and one was paid, and I've seen more people converting that way. So I'm kind of also debating the idea if I should maybe lock one idea behind the paywall, because why not? But of course, then the quality of the newsletter would be perceived not as high. So yeah, right now it's just a database and a small tripwire offer when you sign up.
When you were locking one idea behind, how much were you sharing for free of that idea?
I was kind of giving a teaser. So in the first paragraph, I always have like bullet points of the proof of concept, the category like software, if it is it B2C, B2B, and that type of stuff.
So I want to think a little bit about if we were to do a subscription product, I want to think a little bit about what value you could include in that, right? Because I think something like this, I prefer a subscription to a one-off cost. Especially with this audience, it's relatively hard to get conversions to a one-off sort of database of ideas. Ideas are often perceived as being a bit outdated after 6 months or a year. It's not necessarily, especially if you're thinking about the value of the newsletter business. Subscription revenue is a lot more attractive if you ever consider trying to sell it or do
Yeah.
something like that. So I much prefer the subscription aspect of it. When I'm thinking about the value that you could provide other than just the ideas themselves, do you have any suggestions there? I have some, but I want to hear, sort of give you the chance to share what you might do there.
Yeah, maybe that's also interesting for some people out there that I tried launching a code-based course, and I did it by trying to pre-sell it. So I built a landing page, which I took way too long for, but I think in hindsight, I priced it too high and did some mistakes around the marketing communication around it. I also didn't send enough emails, blah, blah, blah. But and yeah, I didn't make enough sales, so I refunded all the people and tried that to yeah, give out. And I'm now playing with the idea to start a community, because I think, especially in this kind of start a business space, that can bring a lot of value to it. But I feel like if I don't have like a piece of content that's kind of the bottom of it, it's just hoping that the community will provide the value, and that's something which is risky, which is why I'm thinking of giving access for the first 20 people for free, and then maybe go from there. But this is kind of my thought process so far.
I love the idea of having a community. It two reasons. Firstly, it provides you with a really good source of content and feedback, and maybe some of the ideas will come through there as well. I think it gives you that really good loop. But secondly, it takes a lot of the pressure off you in terms of the content being the only thing that people are paying for. And if you ever decide to slow down or change the content slightly, the community will still be valuable and you're not ripping people off. Now, we think about pricing. I think you can still go with that, something like the $99 a year. For this kind of community, especially when what you're giving away or what you're giving people in value is a weekly thing, I have started moving much more towards charging not necessarily on an annual basis, but charging on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Because if you think about that, what you're charging people, $99 a year, is less than $2 a week, right?
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, I'm going to send you 2 researched, vetted startup ideas that you could implement and that will be, have the potential to make you tens of thousands of dollars a month for less than the price of a coffee,
Yeah.
right? A
Yeah.
week. Each week, I'm going to send you that in return. Like that is a no-brainer. It makes it super easy for people to do it, right? So I would go with weekly. I would maybe give people an annual thing, depending on cash flow, depending on how important it is to you to log people in. But I would be prioritizing the almost a weekly charge, and definitely explaining it as being a like relativizing as like every week I'm going to send you this, and it's going to cost you less than a Starbucks coffee.
So you mean locking one of the ideas maybe behind the paywall, bundling it up with the community, or doing something in that direction, or what were you referring to?
So I don't love locking content. I think in general, your best content in pretty much every successful newsletter I know, the best content is free. And the ideas are the things that are going to get people interested. I'm sure when you go to TikTok and places like that, sure, you could probably do quizzes. Maybe we talk about that at some point if we ever talk about growth, but the ideas are really important to get people interested. So I would not be locking ideas away. But that doesn't mean that you can't have value related to the content inside of the paid thing, right? So two easy ways to do this. Number one, people who are signing up for your newsletter, they want these ideas and they're thinking, if I find the idea that I want to do, um, I don't really want a lot of competition to do it, right? So this is a little bit tricky because you'd have to do some more work in advance,
Yeah.
but you can make the free ideas a month delay, right? You can say, hey, when you're paid, you get first access to the up and coming to the ideas,
Yeah.
and the free audience, you can give it, you can say, hey, like, just so you know, I already shared this a month ago. You have to figure out the right way to say it, where it's the right mix of like, it's still valuable now,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
hey, imagine if you'd been able to get a head start on this a month before everybody else. Um, it would give you some time.
Yeah.
It also increases the perceived value of the idea, right? Like it's not just like an idea. It's like, oh no, you like people are paying to get access to this idea before you, right? So it's a really nice little sales push as well each time.
Yeah, that's a pretty good idea. Yeah. I've already 35 ideas in the database that are kind of not published yet, which are all the premium ones from before. I think this especially could be something where it's more, the urgency is much higher probably. Because that's also one of the objections I get is like, okay, if 8,000 other people are getting this, what good is it for me?
Also, selfishly as well, imagine you have a community of the people who are most interested in these ideas. You bring them your idea, the premium one that isn't ready for everybody yet. You get your community to give feedback on it. They tell you how they're thinking about doing it. Obviously, you don't take any specifics that would necessarily ruin it for somebody,
Hmm.
but you can definitely what you share with everybody in the newsletter will be better after it has gone through those 100 or 1,000 people who are in the paid community than it would be if you just coming from you, right? It's always going to be better because you have insights,
Yeah.
feedback. You'll have people say, "Oh, I saw someone doing this in Sweden, for example, right? And here's how it went for that." Okay, great. Well, I can pull that into the thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like they're paying you to do the work for you, effectively, in a way to improve the free thing. So
Yeah. That's a good thought.
um, that's definitely one. The other thing that you can do is you can gate a piece of content, right? So if you take the idea, and there is probably some value into sharing a little bit more about how maybe somebody could implement this idea or some steps that you might take. Or maybe there's one really important thing that you learned about this that you think, or one twist or one adaptation, or just something each time where you're like, hey, I have a really good way of pitching and hooking that there's this one little thing that if you knew this, it would be really useful. And that's the thing that then you blur out that section and say, this bit is only available to paid members, right? And because the price, you're not charging people $1,000 to get access to that. You're literally saying it's the price of a cup of coffee a week,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that over time, it might not be, the first week someone signs up, the second week it might not be the idea they're interested in. Eventually, there is going to be an idea, hopefully, that they're interested in enough to want to pay $3 to upgrade. And once they're in, they're going to enjoy the community. They'll like to keep getting the ideas. Nobody cancels, a $3, $2 a week product. Very, very rarely.
Yeah.
uh, Once they're enjoying it.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. Maybe doing like one piece of the content as exclusive for those. Yeah. Okay.
One tiny little niche thing, right? Something that if you don't share it, it's not going to affect your growth in any way, right? It's not going to make your TikToks worse. It's not going to make a YouTube or a whatever worse. But just being able to hide it a little bit would be super
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
And the final thing on that, is there something you can do um, around working together with partners? For example, could people get from this part of where they can buy the sponsor you have where they can buy micro startups? Could they get a discount or like a coupon code when they become a paid member? Could they get a trial access to another paid newsletter that you like that you think people would enjoy? Could they get a discount on HubSpot, a free month of HubSpot, like an extended trial or something? Is there someone you know who runs Google AdWords or Facebook ads for startups, or someone who does cold email, like outbound email sales or something like this, right? Someone who develops MVPs,
Hmm.
um, software products for startups. If you find a couple of these who are going to be good potential sponsors in the future while you're doing that anyway at the moment,
Hmm.
if you're pitching them with, "Hey, you can get this for free right now. It's just a discount for our paid members. This is all you have to do, and then I'll be promoting you to them as part of this bundle." Really adds drives up the value, right? You're paying $2 today, and you're going to get access to 15, whatever it is, $2,500 worth of bonuses and credits. But also, it opens that door to be able to say, well, you're getting access to the free newsletter, the paid newsletter right now, but the free newsletter is 20 times bigger. So do you want access to these people? Let's do a sponsorship at some point.
Totally, yeah. Just one idea that I got from this now actually could be like a free, because in Germany or in Europe we have a lot of grants that you can apply for, and there's tons of agencies that give you like a free consultation call. So maybe like just one where you get a free consultation for checking, okay, what could you get for your idea, and that's basically inbound sales for them. Which, yeah, and also I got inspired from your newsletter. Because you mentioned these like crazy referral giveaways ideas. I mean, it's not related to monetization, so we don't have to go into it. But maybe I can do something similar where giving away a business or maybe just a discount on any given of those businesses. So yeah, that's super super interesting.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's others, right? Germany, very difficult place to start a business. I bet there are people who you pay to help you figure that out, and they would love to give a
Yeah,
discount on the first call, right? Whatever that's called, like the tax guy or the accountant and
totally.
all this kind of stuff. I'm sure there's a load of stuff you can do there as well. So
Yeah,
a bunch of people you can bring in to do that.
yeah,
I think, in my opinion, that is a really solid membership product. It's a really solid loss leader. It's very easy to get people in, to find out who your most effective people are. I wouldn't spend a bunch more time now thinking about other things that you could do there. Probably in the future, there are like micro products you could do, right? So you can wrap up um, at some point, you could wrap up as like a mini product uh, like the best places to go to like start your business, for example, in terms of like who you can work with, or like how to cold call in Germany to find your first five customers. There's all these kind of things that you could do, probably work more usefully as lead magnets, but I think that as a core product for that range works really well.
yeah.
Let's move on to the trickier part, which I think is the that next tier up, right? Like that 1% of users who would pay hundreds, maybe thousands, low thousands
Mm.
a month. That's, I'm guessing, where the cohort based course was priced.
Yeah, it was priced at 600 euros, and then I gave a 50% discount for. Yeah, I kind of orientated with how Matt McGarry was doing his pricing, but I think I should have just done 50% off, and 20 spots were limited. And yeah, it didn't sell even five, so that was kind of a flop, but I learned a lot along the way. So, and it's also a lot of work. So yeah, I'm glad I pre-sold it at least.
Cohort based courses can work well. I've run one myself, which did pretty well like 6 7 years ago. They're getting more and more difficult. People are less and less interested in paying to learn stuff and more interested in paying for results, right? Is there anything that you could do that is related to what people related to what your audience is getting from you, that you could package into something that would cost maybe 1,000, 2,000, $3,000?
Is it more, would you say, on the service-based side or more like product? or maybe both?
Either or. I think at that range, like to begin with, the easiest way to make a lot of money from newsletters that have less than about 20, 30,000 subscribers is services, right? It's way easier to do. You can absolutely build products later on top of it, but services is the easiest way to, to make money for sure. For example, you have these ideas. Could people pay you to help them try and find their first 5 customers? Or to try and find like 3 people to talk to if it's like a business where there is a value in doing that.
That that could that could be a possibility for sure. I mean, I've gained some experience, especially in also pre-selling, to find out how to validate idea, and that was also the topic which I wanted to do it on the code-based course, how to pre-sell something. Maybe it was a bit too detailed or too niche, but that could for sure be an interesting opportunity. I'm also thinking of putting like book a one-on-one call with me for like 50 euros for 45 minutes to find out what is actually the thing that people want. And I'm also asking like an open-ended question, the sign-up survey, and the one thing people want is like a step-by-step plan for starting out. So maybe an email course could, but then again we're in the low end again. But
I don't love for your kind of audience. If you're going to do a course of teaching people how to do it, I love making that free or as close to free as possible because what you're doing is that is basically your sales pitch, right? That's you showing you, hey, I know how to do this thing. Here is how difficult and how much time it would take to do it. So that's why you would much prefer to pay me this amount for me to go and do it for you, right? If you ever take a course from someone who is selling it at that range, most of the time, the reason they're doing that is not obviously they want that course to be valuable, but they're essentially you're paying them to receive the sales pitch they want to give you to buy the thing that is 5, 10, $20,000 from them where they do it for you, right?
yeah,
Um, so I would say with your audience that probably is not looking to spend a ton of money, and where you're maybe not necessarily coming in as the expert and the sales of the course haven't gone super well so far, I would think about some ways that you can provide a very, very concrete results based service, right? So you say, look, hey, for this idea, for example, I'm going to take on 1 or 2 people and I'm going to either build the landing page for you and set that up with someone who does the branding, or I will maybe together with someone else, if that's not your skill set, maybe you can partner up with someone who will vibe code the
yeah,
first version of the platform, right? Like an MVP or like something that people can see.
yeah,
Maybe that's and you offer that as a fixed price each time, for example, right? You say, okay, I can only do 2 or 3 of
mhm,
this for people.
yeah.
Or maybe there's something where it's the first sale, right? Like I'll help you, I'll do the outreach to try and find you 5 people to talk to or something. Where we're actually getting them those results because it's probably, in my experience as well, with this kind of audience, it's a lot easier to just do the thing than it is to to teach them to do that thing in a lot of cases. And they're much, much more willing to pay for someone to do the thing for them, especially nowadays.
Yeah, that's totally right. I think that in that case, it's a good way to think about kind of having that as a sales letter to, this is how you do it, this
Mhm.
is how I've done it, and then if you actually want to do it, hey, I can help you along the way. I'm gonna add next week, like in the end, 3 ways how I can help you, where I want to pitch the community. I'm doing a wait list already, and also the consultation call. I've also been thinking about maybe being like, okay, I'll help you build your own newsletter, because it's something I've I know a lot about right now, and in Germany there's not a lot of people who even know about this business model, and that's where I would feel, you know confident, because a lot of startup ideas maybe I couldn't help, because I'm not, they're so versatile, um, that maybe it would be more difficult. But yeah,
But there's probably something that you can offer or that through partners that you could provide for every single idea. They like every whatever you're building is going to have a web page, for example. Whatever you're building is going to need to talk to a couple of people about it, probably, to get their feedback on how this would work in Germany. Uh, Maybe like a pricing help or something as well. There's going to be some things that people will need help with on every single one that you can package as like a thing that would be the revenue for that. Getting the first one might be a little bit more difficult, and maybe you even offer it for free the very first iteration or the first two, but then you can talk about those results later, right? You can revisit that idea and say, hey, here is someone who's doing this, here is what we got. And that will be a loop and then into people wanting to buy from you in the future, right? Once they see the results that you've got with that for that audience. I think we can leave that level of things there. I think we don't need to go too in deep here into what the exact service is that you would offer to people, because it's probably you probably want to have a long think about that and sort of brainstorm some things and see how interested you are in providing them. But I think that's a great place to go. So let's move on to the 0.1%, right? The one in the thousand, something you could offer to them.
Yeah.
A lot of the time when you're just starting off, I think it's fine not necessarily to have anything for them just yet. But I think you, over time, probably will want to develop something for these people, right? Sponsorships is the obvious one. Probably one in 1,000 people who read your newsletter, they're reading it because you have the same customers as they do or the same audience as they do, and they want to figure out how they can reach those people. So sponsorships definitely is like the default one, but probably as you start to explore this, the 1% tier with those services that cost maybe $1,000, $2,000 a month, there's going to be something there, right? Where you go, okay, actually, I could run this. I could productize this specific bit of it, whether it's the sales, the marketing, the building it of the ideas. There is something there that you would be able to do. Maybe it even becomes something lateral where people reach out to you and say, "Hey, look, I really just wish someone would like show the people inside of my company how to do this," right? And it becomes like a more corporate offer where you go in and you help them do the things with like internal ideas or something like that.
Yeah, I think that I haven't even thought about this kind of bucket of monetization. So yeah, that's for sure a good idea to go kind of even start thinking about it.
I wouldn't worry too much about it right now.
Yeah,
I think that one, you either start a newsletter knowing already what that is, and you start the newsletter as the top of funnel for that, right? Like if you're Greg Eisenberg, for example, you know that you have a design agency that sells contracts for hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. All you need to do is figure out something that the kind of client that you're looking for is really, really interested in so that you can build a relationship with them. And then you go and build the newsletter on that. And all you care about is that 0.1% of people or that 0.01% of people who come through. But if you're not doing it that way, then I think it's absolutely fine to wait until you find something that does work, because very often it's something that's quite surprising. It's
yeah,
not something that you can necessarily know until you've built up those steps, right? So the community, the the cheaper sort of packaged productized service thing, you will see opportunities there. You'll have people asking you, "Oh, could you just keep doing this? Could I just pay you every month to do this thing or to do more of this?" And then you'll end up with the thing that makes sense.
and I think that's probably something, as you say, which along the way it will somehow be very apparent, which you cannot be in a room and just be like, okay, hey, I will do that. So for sure, okay,
So I think we're pretty good there in terms of like, obviously you still have to think through a couple of these things and like what the exact idea would be, but that feels to me like a really positive place to start in terms of trying to grow your lifetime revenue and to make as much money as possible long term from the newsletter. I think the challenge that we want to cover just in the last sort of 10 minutes or so now is, okay, that's great. Maybe theoretically I have this thing now that will make me $20 or $30 per subscriber over their lifetime on average. But you still need to be able to scale this, right? So we need to talk about the other part, which is the payback period. How do I make as much money of this money as possible very, very quickly so that I can go and grow this really aggressively and next year be at 20 or 30 or 50 or 100,000 subscribers? Because Germany's sort of small countries, like 80, 90 million
yeah.
people or
With
something.
Austria and Switzerland, it's 100 million, so it's a really
Yeah.
decent market.
Yeah. So there are going to be 50 or 100,000 people there for sure who are going to be interested in this and should be reading the newsletter, right? It's a decent size. So let's talk about that. At the moment, your cost of acquiring subscribers. Can you share what that is?
For sure. I would say it's around 1 to 1 euro 50. Sometimes even 80 cents per day. But yeah, that's kind of the average.
So just to keep it international for people who are watching,
Yeah,
so about $1 to $1.50 ish is roughly where we are in terms of new subscribers. Right now, what does your sign up flow look like? How are you monetizing new subscribers who come in?
Yeah, so they sign up, then they get offered 5 different newsletters. They're mostly German ones, actually some American ones now as well. They can choose from that with the BS boost. I still want to try out Sparkloop, but it was more of a convenient thing. Then it goes to the survey where they can input their question, and then they get on the thank you page where I'm also selling the database again for 50% off. And then in the welcome sequence, I'm also doing a kind of affiliate thing in one of the emails where I'm linking to a code-based course that is all about coding as an entrepreneur, which I just started out, and I have to see how it goes. But yeah,
So when I look at that, if we think about how to monetize in the first 24 hours, you basically have three options, right? You have paid recommendations, you have, which you're already doing, you
yeah,
have your own product, which you're already doing, but probably we can optimize a little bit better how we do that. And we have lead gen, right? So the moment you're doing like an affiliate offer in there, I don't love affiliate offers because you don't get paid out until 30 plus days later in most cases.
oh,
So that's
yeah,
kind of useless. I mean, it's nice revenue, and some people can do really well with affiliate offers, but it's not payback period revenue because
mm,
it's coming too late, right?
yeah,
So what I would be doing instead is lead gen. So getting paid per lead that you send to other people. And I think in your case, if you combine that with a a sensible quiz with good quiz questions that will segment out people for that audience, I think you have a lot of potential there. I think you have like brick and mortar services in Germany probably as well who would be interested, right? Going back to those accountants to start the business, going to hiring, for example, there are these companies like I think Oceans and Somewhere, for example, uh, who are trying to grow really aggressively. And if you can say, hey, I'm going to send you somebody who is already running a business and who one of their priorities is to hire in the next 30 days, they're going to be happy to pay you $5 or $10 to talk to that person, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think
same, yeah,
from them. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, but you have to segment these people out, right, to find the right one. Same with the tax or the accountant support. You can do those. Hopefully, there's probably someone out there already who is selling. Probably multiple people who are selling courses on how to vibe code products with AI, right?
Yeah.
I bet they would be happy to get that lead and pay something for those leads as well. Um, and then you're already working with a marketplace, right,
Yes.
for
Yeah.
small businesses, buying small businesses. Do you ask people when they come in whether they're interested in buying a small business?
Actually, I do not know.
Do you ask them how much they're ready and expecting to invest into growing their business, building and growing their business?
I have it in the community when they sign up there, but obviously that's not enough people. Yeah, but that could be a good question to ask.
I would ask that for that because if you have someone coming in who says, "Yeah, I'm looking to spend 50 or $100,000 plus," um, those people you're working with who are selling businesses, marketplaces, if you tell them, "Hey, you can pay just for people who say I'm looking to spend $50,000 plus,
Yeah,
and yes, I'd be kind of interested in learning about startups that I could potentially buy to save me some time." They're going to pay a bunch of money for those leads, right? A lot more than a couple of dollars there, because that's the people they want to reach when they're sponsoring your newsletter, right? But they have to sponsor everybody. So if you can say, well, you only have to pay for specifically these people in this focus time, they'll probably give you 20, 30, maybe even more, $50 in some cases.
yeah, that's a really good way of kind of, I guess, niching down on these with this lead gen, which I've never really. I've heard about it before, and it was more like I was always thinking about these like B2B very specific things, but it could totally make sense for this type as well. Yeah,
Okay, nice. So we have the lead gen side of things that you can do after that quiz. It just depends on getting the quiz questions right to be able to find out this valuable stuff, which 9 out of 10 times is also the valuable stuff that you need to know to be able to sell them stuff. Because hey, guess what? If someone's coming in and they want to spend $50,000 on building their own business, that's going to be someone you want to sell the services to, right? Compared to the student who wants to spend wants to do it all for free and will
yeah,
do it themselves. So
yeah,
these
yeah,
are these questions are also really useful for you.
totally.
In the paid recommendations, normally people do make more money with Sparkloop than with boosts. It's normally somewhere between 2 to 5 times as much per subscriber. It sounds like you're actually on the high end, the very, very high end of boosts. I don't think I've actually ever heard of anybody who makes more than 50 cents per subscriber.
So I know that of all the people I'm recommending, so if I'm recommending 100 people a day, I'm making $65, for example. But that's of the people I'm getting in, which is about, yeah. So it's 40 to 50 cent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
For boosts, 40 to 50 cents is really, really good.
yeah. But I'm also getting paid around $1.80 to $2.40 per subscriber on these.
That's fine. So 40 to 50 cents per subscriber is, for boosts, it's really good. Are you going to make more from Sparkloop? Probably. Is that where, in your case, I would spend the time right now? Probably not. I think there are other things you can optimize first. I would do the lead gen, and then the other thing I would look at right now is um the the product that you're offering, right? The tripwire product that you're selling to people.
Yeah.
50% off a $99 thing is probably not enough. If you're going to offer it, you have to offer it really, really aggressively.
Okay.
And so I think you have two options there. You can either give a really big discount off an annual plan, and I'm talking like huge,
Mhm.
huge
Yeah.
discount, or you don't give a discount, you give a 7-day free trial of the community, and then but they already have to put their credit card in to get it, and then it's going to be $2 or $3 a week from that.
Yeah. I thought about that. It maybe is too low. And yeah, fair point.
When you do those tripwire discounts, you're really looking for something that is going to be in the under $20 range, where they're going to pull out their credit card and just not even care about whether it's 5 or 15 or 20. $50 on a $99 product. If you want someone to pay $50, you probably have to put that value up to a couple of $100, most likely.
Yeah.
Um, you could the other if you want to get more money like that, what you can do is you can do a lifetime deal. So you can say, look, hey, if the lifetime that we don't really promote anywhere else is $500, it includes $2,000+ worth of discounts and value, blah 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 blah. And just today, I'm going to give it to you for 50. Or again, 50 is a weird place because if you're going to do 50, you might as well do 99
Yeah.
because that's the same. People who are going to pay 50 are also going to pay 90
Yeah. Fair enough.
on their credit card. So I would go in one of those two ways. I'd either go right down to a free trial or just straight into the $2 or $3 a week, or I would go into the more into like the $80 to $99 range, but stupidly big reduction, and it's a lifetime thing.
Yeah.
You can probably try one of those for a month, try the other for a month, see which one makes you more money per subscriber, because that's all that matters. The cost to you is nothing of having people in those groups. So see which one works best for you and
Yeah.
take that there.
And that's, I think, the great thing about these tripwire offers, that you can test them so well. I also tried selling 12 ideas for €9 and obviously had more sales, and I still have to do the math on what's the best option there. But it's very interesting to test. But of course, takes time as well.
Yeah, it does. But the nice thing, that's when you create new products. But when you just have those products that you're already selling elsewhere with a discount, it's much quicker. And you should be able to then, if you're currently getting 40 to 50 cents per new subscriber at the moment, even if you stay with boosts right now and keep that as it is, you should be able to take another 50 cents to $1 per subscriber from Leecher, and then easy, and then hopefully another dollar-ish on average from the upgrade to the paid tripwire product. We should get you into that $1.50 to $2 range, hopefully $2.50 maybe, even if you're lucky on average. And that gives you a lot of room for paid growth with better things like that, right? Where you can be a little bit more ambitious and
Yeah.
effectively scale that for free. And then, as you're adding in thousands of subscribers a month, right? Hopefully 5, 10,000 subscribers a month for a couple of months, that's going to give you a lot more leverage into the sponsorships deal. Especially if you did this first before going out and locking in that sponsorship. If you have a month of really solid growth and you're taking that to your sponsors that you're trying to lock in for a year and saying, hey, I was at 8,000 last month, now I'm at 11,000. I'm growing 35% month on month at the moment. Here's where I'm projected to be at the end of the year. They could be very happy to lock you in at a price which feels pretty good for you right now.
And then you're basically, I mean, talking about the sign up flow, you're kind of growing for free, and then it's just, as Sam Parr put it, just finding a dumpster of or a truck of money to pour in, and then can go from there. But yeah, they're very interesting.
Cool. Well, that was everything I think that I wanted to cover. I feel like we ended up in a pretty good place here. Was this useful? Any sort of like questions that you want to dive into on this?
I think not. There's so many things I will think about in the upcoming days and take out of it. I think it was super hands on. So thanks again for taking the time and I think there's a lot to take away from it in all along all the kind of the value chain. I think yeah, it's a good way to start, and I see where I'll go from there. I think the engagement is there, paid acquisition is going well, and yeah, at the end of the day, if I can help people make their own business, that's a really good impact. And yeah, so thanks.
Nice. Awesome. Thanks for coming in.